the class.
Maybe.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from across the globe. My name is Abdurrahman, and once again, welcome to the Data Analysis Bootcamp. So, as you heard from the organizers, we are thankful, and we hope that, yeah, for the beneficiaries, you could make some things out of it. So, this is the Excel section of the bootcamp, which creates like a preliminary to the whole thing, and we'll start that today. So my name is Abdurrahman. I'm a master's student at the Technical University of Munich, and I'm doing a master's in transportation engineering. So to go further, without further ado, okay, so the outline for the course will be this. The intention is those in the course are going to be learning that they're in the beginners or intermediary stage. And as such, this is just a brief part of it, but Excel entails a lot, and it's like the concept or the areas to be treated is very dependent on the function you're going to be using Excel for, as we are going to see during the course of the class. But to keep everybody afloat with the basics, these are going to be the outlines we'll be considering. So general introduction to Excel, basic functions in Excel, lookup function, which is very useful, conditional formatting, data validation, pivot table, charts, and plots, as they are very handy, which are also like here, preliminary to visualization. So the class itself, as we already know, since we're in this section at the moment, will be running from 12 to 2. That's West African time, which includes like Nigeria. And then for the weekly, there will be a weekly assignment, and the intention is before the next week is submitted by Wednesday. So if you're going to be receiving assignment tomorrow, by next week Wednesday, as at 11:59, the assignment should be submitted. Any assignment after that, unfortunately, won't be considered. So please, let's stick to time. Yeah, this is the class section. So for the class, we know it's from 12 to 2, but the intention is, do we go straight through the entire class, or do we make the class at least take a break? A tea break, you could use it for other stuff as well. It doesn't mean that you have to stick to taking tea, but then it's just a tea break to keep it mature. So for this, I would like us to use the function in Zoom, which is just the reaction function. Just no need of talking to say whether it's option A or option B, but then you could just use the thumbs up function. So if you're going to be pleased with having option A, please, if you're going to be pleased with option A, do the thumbs up, and if not, I'll just assume everybody's, or majority are going with option B, so majority carries the vote. So for option A, thumbs up. For option B, just remain without reaction.
Oh. Okay, Mr. Abraham.
Yeah, so before we go further into Excel, I think it's best to know our basic knowledge at the moment before we further dive into it. So this is just a brief lesson, a brief exercise to get our knowledge about Excel. So what do we know about Excel? You could just take your phone or just open a side note on the internet, like on your laptop. Just go to this site, use this code in, and tell me what you already know, what you know about Excel, rather. This is the first one. So what do you know about Excel? Enter the code, and yeah, I would love to see the answers. I believe about 35 of us, so we should see some opinions on what do you know about Excel. It doesn't require much. Just go to the main C and enter the codes. Enter the code and you should be fine. Are we having difficulties doing that? Okay. We have 5. Perhaps just a minute more and then close up on that without further wasting time. Yeah, so the intention of the exercise was just to get an overview of what we have an idea about, but the answers are actually displayed on the wrong sheet. So that's probably a mistake from the setup, but yeah, the intention is to grab. So from what we can see here, it's a spreadsheet app, analyze data, about how to open new worksheets. Okay, to analyze data, spreadsheet for analysis of data, more or less the same thing. So yeah, thanks to those that have actually helped in filling it out. Without further wasting our time, what we can see from here is the general opinion is that we have an idea that, yeah, Excel as a software is used for analyzing data. And then data is a big term which it encompasses information in the raw, semi-processed form, or even in the finished lesson, that is in a analyzed and claimed form, whereby it passes meaningful information. So to the introduction of Excel. Excel is just an electronic spreadsheet application, as some of you rightly mentioned in the previous section. So it was developed by the company Microsoft, and it operates like every Microsoft app we know about. At least for the basics, you probably know about Word, and we know about PowerPoint. And we are using two today. So we're using PowerPoint now for the presentation, and then we'll be learning about Excel. So it's a software which is, it uses like, it's huge. It's used over different sectors, like for offices, NGOs, government parastatals, even a personal use. So the limit of Excel, it's like the use, it's very wide that you can actually kind of limit its use except from specific functions that might not be easier to carry out in the basic Excel setting, but then you might be able to carry it out with the virtual basics. So it's an important function which you could just use basically for storing information. You might not necessarily use it to analyze, but then to store your data. And it could be used to search and explore, even store data. So if someone gives us like the population data of Nigeria now, we probably want to know what's the number of males in a particular state, the number of females in that state, what's the birth rate, what's the death rate. So it's a big information, and to access this information as well, like you need a lot of things to do in the data. So we could use it to store the data. We could use it to explore and correlate further data, and its range is just a lot. And if you're familiar, this is the basic Excel interface, which we'll see and we'll be working in. So it contains a lot of things itself, which are like the workbook, the worksheets, the column, the rows, the cells, and we'll further analyze everything as we go on with the class ourselves. Like we're gonna see the real picture. So as earlier mentioned, this Excel class is just for the basics and intermediate, and as such, we won't be doing advanced stuff that requires the virtual basic of for application, which involves the use of macro, because that might just be out of the class section. So for this section, we believe it's a practical section, and as such, it requires more of doing than more of saying, or like listening alone. So we'd like to go to the software itself and then carry out further activities. We'll have a wonderful section, and yeah, see that. Let me admit more individuals. So, hope we can see or hear me clearly. Yeah, so for everyone, it's just, yeah, one of those stuffs. You can just open your system, see the Excel pin here, or just simply type Excel, if you can see my screen, and then the
You can't see your screen.
You're not seeing an Excel sheet?
No, I've been putting it on the chat. Nobody's responding, so that they can tell you.
Oh, I can see it. It's showing.
So why am I not seeing mine now?
Oh, your screen was showing. I mean, it just stopped sharing now. It was showing
Okay,
before.
because I saw the person, so perhaps it's at your hand. Just maybe
Yeah,
try.
maybe it is from my end.
Yeah, so maybe you could log out and like join the meeting again. I'll be sure to keep an eye on the.
Okay,
on the
let me log out
participants.
and let me log out.
Yeah, I'll be sure to keep an eye on the participants. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is just the basic Excel page. When you open it, this is what you see. So this sheet itself is what we call a workbook, because this, it's like a file on its own, and you can have multiple files of an Excel. And in an advanced case, you can even interact on multiple workbooks, depending on what you're extracting. But further classes might also help you in that perspective when you start learning about Python. But without much wasting time on that, so we have the workbook as a whole. This is a workbook. Like the whole thing you see on my screen is a workbook. Then we can see below, if you can see my mouse, we can see something below that is called sheet 1. So sheet 1 basically refers to the sheets, the worksheets. So which means you can have these, and to add other sheets, it's a simple stuff, just to click the plus button and you have a sheet 2, a sheet 3. So it's as like simple as that to interact with. It doesn't require much setup, and it's an open face for us to interact with. Then within a sheet, we have this interface, but the one that we're going to be working with the most is these blocks. So these blocks itself, and the right name they are used for them is called a cell. So this is a cell, this is another cell, this is another cell. The mouse itself on Excel, I believe you're seeing a plus icon moving around the page. So the plus icon is the one that helps to like you move around the Excel page. Although outside the cell region, it changes back to the usual triangular edge we're used to. I'm glad so we're able to see it now. So to interact and to be able to identify these cells, we have the rows and column. I seen the Excel page fully. Okay, so we have rows and column. On the left-hand side, we must be saying some numbers ranging from 1, and it goes as far as 1,000, less than 100. Yeah, that is 104, 104,000, sorry, it's 1 million plus. So it ranges to about 1 million plus. This is just a basic page. But then the further you're using it for, the more you can actually expand on it. And also for the columns, we can see we are having A here, but then it doesn't end at A. From Z, they continue the columns because you could be working on a data that goes wild, like it's very wild, and you just have to do with a lot of movement. I'm going to the extreme ends of the data by using some short keys, but we'll get to know about them as we further move through the class. So for the this thing, to just go below is just to use the control and the down arrow. So it takes me to the last cell in the sheet, and I can just go back to the first cell in that column by pressing control and the up arrow, and same thing, control and the right takes me to the extreme right, and control and the left takes me back to the end of it. So these are short keys that you use to interact and move fast between the cells, but we keep learning as we go through. So for the basics, we have the top, this is like the menu bar. And this menu bar contains like a lot of predefined functions, which you can actually use to interact with the cell, or you can actually enter into the cell. So for the first thing, one of it is to note the cell you are working in. Like we recall, this is the column A, and this is row 1. To join both of them together, you know the cell you are interacting with, and that's why we have this here. This highlighted this in space is telling you that we are interacting with A1, that's the cell. So it is on column A, it is on row 1. Column A, row 1. So if we move to other parts, we're going to discover we are now on column E, but then on row 8. So that's why we're having E8 here. So starting initially, we go back to files without much. If you want to open a new Excel file, you just have to click on open, and then you can choose from existing templates, or you just open a blank one, similar to the one we're working with before. And then you have to open, if you want to open from the folder, information, save, and you can save as. So maybe this will dive into further, like in other subsequent classes, but you can save an Excel file even as a PDF and as a CSV file, other formats. You could print it, depending on what you have to print. You can print it, you can share, you can export. We'll close this for now. So this is back to the page again. Then we have home. So the home, it's like it's full. We have, this is the undo button, which undoes, and this it redos. So we have these functions there. Well, let me go back to, let me go back to the main page where we are. So this is to undo, and this is to redo. We have the paste. We don't have anything to paste at the moment. Well, let's see. And then you could right click, copy it, and then paste it into another cell. We're going to learn about this later. Or what I copied, I could just go to a new cell and click on paste. And it's the same. I could cut it, copy. These are like basic functions we've learned in maybe other softwares as well. While the format painter, it's more or less like if you have a data series, you want to copy the formats behind that you use there, more or less the formula, and not the words itself, that is the word you've entered. And just like our word, you could change your font, you could change its size, bold it, use it in italics, or even underline it. And this helps to design tables better. So we're going to go through all these functions more when we have text. This is to actually color the text, or color, so you can change the color of the text in a cell, or change the color of the space, that is the background. So to change the background color, which is like you're filling it, we have boy there, then you can change. That's not clear. Okay, this is a bit clear. like the black is still showing. So we can change the boy. So the boy is still this thing. It's still there, but then the color is what is different.
Okay, sorry, sir. Please, some people
Yeah.
are in the waiting room. Can you please accept them in?
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Actually accepted Gladys in take over. Thank you very much for the reminder. Please just help me keep an eye on it. Case. So this is the second function, which instead of changing this field, that is the background, you can change the color of the text itself, which is something like this. Perhaps you're dealing with something that it's more or less like a grade or an anomaly in the old setting, and you just want to outline that out. This is an anomaly in the old data set. So you can use these simple functions that when you have a lot of text you're saying, by placing these functions, it calls your attention to actually go back and look at it that something is not right here, or I need to make some corrections here. So you can just put it there, or if you're working as a group, it helps like here, when you share the file with others, it calls their attention that, okay, this is what I'm referring you to. So more or less within the cell itself, you can actually place where the cell goes, whether it's to the top, it's in the middle, it's downwards. You might not be seeing it because of the space around it, but perhaps you see more where you're saying left outline, middle, or you say to the right. But generally, Excel, when you open a new worksheet, is aligned to the left. So this is more of like an orientation. Sometimes when you're drafting your work, you might need to create a table whereby you want to change. You don't want it to be horizontal, you want it to be vertical. So I can make it a vertical text. This is perhaps not the best one you want to use. We can just make it rotate text upwards, and then we have boy facing up, and then we can be writing the name of boys in the class. Or something like boys like this, girls like this, and then we write others. So we can use the undo function now, and yeah, we have it back. So these are just like the distant general one to increase the indentation, which is not here, the index. To wrap up text, I say university. I'm asking for university name of a school, and after I create the value I'm seeking for, which is the university name, we can see it is beyond the value of like the name, the variable that we just entered in the text. It's more than the space of the column, and as such, that's why it's showing here. Why we can see the whole full text now, university name, is because there's nothing in F at the moment, it's empty. So the text from E, it's overlaying on F, but let's say we put something in F as well, like saying matric number. So the moment we enter matric number, which is also overlaying G now, we can see we are not saying the name that is part of the university name variable again. So there are two ways to do this. You can call it wrap to text, whereby yes, it draws it downwards. So it's going to widen that particular cell to be able to display all the variables inside. Or what we could do is come to the top part of this column, like using the matriculation on for as an example, we can see it is F to G. In between F and G, there's a line, and we can see when we took our mouse there, it's showing it differently. So you just simply double click that region, and it expands it. So if we are to do this, we can unwrap the text by saying this, and then we can do the same. And now the cell is bigger. To match cell up, you might have something to do with like here. Let's say a good example, we are saying gender. Then under gender, we know we have male. Oh, sorry, male, female. Let me have some people section. So we have male, female. To create a table out of this, we can go back here. This is a function we missed earlier. So we can say all borders. By that, you see it's different from the previous, from these ones. These ones are just like faint lines to indicate each cell. Now we have a table, which we can expand further. But from here, we know gender also affects females. So instead of writing gender here, you can match these two cells together by using the function match. Someone is writing on the screen. So we can use these two genders. We can use this function, match and centralize to this thing, to join the two together. It doesn't have to be centralized, but then you could unmatch the cells as well. So it's a simple function. Then when we come to data type in Excel, I don't know how this came about. Like, so it's weird. Can anyone see a line over the Excel sheet?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw someone came online. I saw you require something that drew the line.
Yes.
And that's to do with it's probably someone is getting to interact with the function and then white paper.
Please kindly admit people in the lobby.
Yeah, I've done that. I don't think there should be anyone in the waiting room at the moment. Yep, there's no one in the waiting room.
Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry about that. So we can continue. So for the data type, this is a big function in Excel because it determines what you enter into a cell. It's something we must be very conscious of in order not to affect our data type, because it could be like, it could affect a whole stuff in Excel. So a good example is we can have 22, although Excel kind of notifies us sometimes when it's like wrong. So if you're to say male, so I'm trying to get something. The main one we get to say which is unknown is the general one, which means no specific format. And then whatever you write under it, Excel reads it. So if we have a list of those in the class, let me go to the class section. Okay. So one of the class data sets we're going to work with today is this. And then for this, we can call it, this is the data type. We're calling it general here, so no specific format. Once I try to rename this cell, which is containing the name variable number, is going to give it as a different value. Why? Because generally number shouldn't, it's not a number, and rather we can give it as general, or we go as text, sorry, not time, but rather text. Yeah, text, which it is ABC, but we retain this back to general. So it's, in this situation, it's not showing much effect as text, but then there are situations whereby a number 23, and this is 9. This is 9. Right now it is general. One of the functions we're going to learn today is the addition function. But just to display that, if I'm to add these two cells together, I'm getting the value 39. Let me bring this downward. If I change the data type of this to text, and I try to carry out the same function, that is this plus this. Oh, that's good. So it's actually a smart function of the Excel making it this, but then it shouldn't work generally because it could affect your value and then make sure it doesn't work. So you can see this is the error message. Excel accepted the computation, but it shows the error message, which in some situation, it's not going to accept the value. So it's showing you the number in this cell is formatted as text or preceded by an apostrophe. But in this situation, we ourselves made it a text, and that's why the placement changed. Because like we said in the alignment, Excel aligns text to the left and numbers to the right. That's the way it enters them generally. So in this case, both are 23, but their locations are different because of the way Excel reads the input inside. So generally, it's better to be sure of what we are entering in order to avoid mistakes in the text later. So aside from these few ones that we have here, we could easily just go into the whole full text whereby you have general, you have numbers, you could dictate what number it is, number of decimal places you like to be saying, and the way you want it to depict the number. So if we choose this example, that means the numbers are going to have bracket in front and behind, which shouldn't be the right thing. So we just have to be very sure of what we're choosing. And there are some specific formats whereby, yes, it's hard to design, but you can also add your own. So when you come to custom, you can always add your own as well. You can edit one or just change it. So it depends on the context of what you're doing at that point in time. But the data set is an important function that we need to be very careful of. So to make some things very simple, the Excel kind of made some obvious or more or less like here. They created some functions out as a key, which instead of going through the whole process, you could just easily click on it. So this is number, or like, yeah, this is number 9 at the moment, but we could make it a currency accounting format. Let's say if this, the Naira. Oh, we have it there. So for some funny reasons called the Yoruba Naira. So we have it as this, and this is now seen as a monetary value and not just a number 9. So if you're buying something, we could say you're buying sugar. Oh, okay. In this case, let's just keep it as this. So you're buying sugar. You're buying milk. And then the quantity of the sugar you're buying per unit is 9 and you're buying 2. So we can always say this is equal to the amount you're buying times the price of 1. So these are simple functions that it affects the answer as well, because then this data type precedes the general one. This one was general, no specific format, which made it possible. Even if it was number, it's still going to read because now it's going to show it as a monetary value preceding the neutral value. We're going to get more information about that. And in a case whereby you're doing a division and you have multiple data, like decimals rather to include, you could just increase the decimals, you could decrease it. I don't know if you saw that, but it's increased to 1 and decrease it. Conditional formatting, we're going to learn more as we go on. These are also part of conditional formatting. So you could just make the cell that it was a good deal, and we could make it, no, it was a bad deal, like you were cheated, and we could just return it back to normal. So this a little part of it. For informations for pivot table, we're going to do that later. Excel can just be a display whereby you import in a picture from your phone, from online source, or you could create the plotting as well. So when we get to visualization, we'll get more on this. We can have add-ins into it, but for subsequent classes, we're going to get more on this instead of. So you could also insert a comment into Excel by using this function, and Excel understands immediately if I'm telling you that, yeah, for this, okay, let's cancel this. So let's say in the calculation, this person used the plus sign instead of the multiplication sign, and I, as the person's boss, can tell you, run calculation. Yeah, run calculation. Use multiply the values. So it's noted here, but once I send back the file to my colleague, I don't need to call the person. You just have to go to the, and you can see my comments there, and then you can rectify or simply just delete. Just tell me it is resolved. Let me do control again. So you could just send it back to me that it's resolved, or delete it. So it's that simple set of functions. This is a page layout, which determines how the size you want to see your Excel sheets. The bigger your screen, the more you tend to see, but for display, you also have some functions below here, which could help to, this is the page layout. This is just the normal one, which you could change some of them, this, or which is not, it's not good for this class like here. So you just use the normal one, and you can increase or decrease the zone. So keep it at 100% for now. For the formulas, this where a lot are. So depending on the function you're using, they are predefined functions already in Excel. So a function simply means that, yes, a function carries out an assigned or a specified task without the need of carrying out that task again, like without the need. A good example is when we start with, okay, let's start operations then. So we are familiar with our additions, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So we are familiar with these words, and the addition function is similar to what we're used to. The subtraction function is similar. The multiplication function is an asterisk, while the division function is a slash. So it's a slash. It's yep. So it's a slash. So this is the Excel function for each of these. We already used the multiplication function. So let's say we have two variables. So insert a cell, because if I need to do something above, I don't necessarily need to move this. I could just insert a new row by coming to the end where we have the numbers, or even within a cell, and then I press insert. This one will have to ask me what I want to do. So am I inserting an entire row? Yes, please. Then we know we have, before it was just one block above, now we have two. Could do the same, but instead of going to using a cell, you can also use the end or on top, whereby you just do this. Now, let's not do it there. Okay, perhaps it's more visible here. So we inserted an entire column here, and even if you want to insert multiple ones, you just need to go to the number of rows that you want to insert and just simply press insert. But this we do not need, so I'm going to remove them. So in a situation where we have two values. We have A and B. Let me just insert a new one here. An entire row. So we have value A and we have value B. A could be as good as 10 and B can be 2, 3. So we can, these values are in cell E4, that is column 4, row 14, and this is in column F. That's not in the section. So this is in column F, row 13 as well. So they are both in the same row. To add them together, we could just write the equal to. So the equal to sign is the function that tells Excel that you're about to enter in a formula or a function. Without the equal to sign, I can't do anything. So if I'm going to copy this, I'm just going to copy it and paste it. But to be able to carry out any operation or a formula, the first thing you need to start with is the equal to sign. So the equal to sign automatically tells Excel that you're about to carry out a function, a formula, include a formula or do anything. So it's the simple basic one. So in order to multiply the 10 and the 3, I could easily write the 10 plus 3. So if we are not seeing it clearly in this formula, this is a tab for seeing functions as well. So we're writing a 10 plus 3, and then we have a 13. But if I'm having multiple values to deal with, I can't keep writing plus, 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 like that's more or less like stressing oneself out. So a smarter way to do it is just go and identify the cells they are. The 10 is in E14, write your plus sign, and then the B is in F14. And as we can see, Excel is referencing the cell. That's why it's also important to be sure. So you can either select your cell by using your arrow or just scrolling through it. In this case, I scroll through it because they're just beside it, or I could just use my cursor to just indicate it. So with this, by the time you press the plus sign, you can say the function is carried out. So reading that, yes, E14 plus F14 have been added together, and similar things can be done for the others as well, whereby we just go to this and we say minus the other one. So another thing to note about when you use the formula is that this, for example, if I go to the tab up and I click on it, it's going to show me the reference of the cells I'm using. So which is showing that this cell and this cell are the ones I'm interacting with. If there's a third one, you're going to see another color, just so you know the number of cells you're interacting with. And we could simply do others for like the other functions as well. So multiplication with the asterisk. So 10 multiplied by 30, so we have this. So we have this, and for division, that's divided by this, and we have it. So we can reduce the number of decimal places as we earlier showed by just coming here and then saying, decrease the decimal. You don't want to see multiple threes. You just want to see it in 2 decimal places. So you can see for these cells, we interacted with an empty cell, which will generally be seen as a number, as general. But the moment we entered number, Excel saw it as a number, that this was no longer just a general, but a number. So it's more or less a very user-friendly interface, and you don't necessarily have to do a lot before you can actually interact with these cells. I can see we're already like 1 hour behind, or 1 hour into the section. And as indicated before, we talked about going on a break, which we'll do shortly. But just to show the basics, distant interaction. So we have done addition, subtraction, multiplication. You can go as well as doing powers. So it's all about like knowing this function. So the power function in Excel, it's I don't know if you can see your mouse, but mouse are, I mean, your keyboard, but keyboard are different from each other. So it's the up arrow, not the arrow key, but this function. So if you can see this function, that's the power function in Excel, which is to say this. So we can say 10, what's the power of 3, which means 10 times 10 times 10, which is, of course, is 1,000. So this is a way to do it. But another thing that comes to mind is the fact that Excel is very diverse, and you don't have to use one way to do it. So there are some functions that require more than one way to do it. You don't necessarily have to write everything like everything doesn't have to be with just one function. You could do them with multiple functions. So for the addition that we did earlier, I had to use the plus sign. I could just use the sum function. So this is what we call inbuilt function in Excel. So inbuilt functions in Excel make it easier for you to carry out the act. And then it also explains what you're actually doing when you write it. So when you're reading it, the sum function, the first one, which we can click on. Initially, it told us, let me clear the bracket so that we can see it. This one adds up all the numbers in a range of cells. So there are other forms of sum as well, which we'll get to use subsequently, especially the if. We'll use the sum if sum. So the sum function just adds up numbers. You don't need to be entering the plus sign, the plus sign, the plus sign. I could just open the bracket. We want to multiply it, want to add two numbers together, which is to enter the first number, enter comma, the second number, the third number, the fourth number. But then I could just go back to the cell again. It's reading the cell. Since the cells are beside each other, I could just extend it, which is the same thing. So instead of writing comma, the next one, I'm pressing down the shift key and scrolling to the right, which is the direction in which the next value is. So before I click on the enter button for it to sum up, we can see that it's using a column symbol. That is, this is it for clearer visualization. We have E14 to the column symbol, and we have F14, which means from year to year. That's just it. So all the values between those range should be summed up. We close the function and we press plus and we find the number. So similar stuff can be done with the subtract. Oh. I'm messing the formula up. But for the power function, I'm going to get back to check that. But for the power function, a similar stuff can be done, which we just need to write the word power. So we start with the initializing the function power. So the word in Excel is power, and Excel is not really bothered about case sensitivity when you're calling out functions. It doesn't bother about the case sensitivity. So we can see they wrote it in capital letter, but here we're writing it in small letter, and it's still reading it as the function. So we have power, open it. This is the initial number, which then we press the comma because we can see the pattern, which is called the syntax in writing it. So Excel shows you the syntax in writing out. We can see the number, the comma, as well as what we are going to be, what's the power of the function. We close the bracket and we are also going to have the same answer. So these are few of basic Excel functions you can use for everyday today stuff. Similar stuff with square root. So the short form for square root is also that you just have to write SQRT. You open the bracket. If you have the number in a cell, you can go and click on the cell, which example 9. We know 9 is a square number, so we just go to the cell 9 and it gives us the answer 3. If you don't have, you can just enter the number as well into the, so you don't necessarily have to have the number written. You can indicate the number yourself. So 25, and we have the answer. So these are ways of entering which we'll further see, and then we have the data type. This one allows you to access data from other forms and helps to listen without having to, like you can import data into Excel without having to copy the file from Excel, and then you can interact with a lot of functions there. Without further wasting much time on this, the further we go, whichever functions we need, we can always come to these to come and work on them, and then we explain further what functions they are carrying out. As earlier said, we won't be using the visual basic application in Excel, which has to do with the micro. But like every software, once in a while we need help. So never forget the help function. This is the help function. Just click on help, it pops out, and then you can enter the word. Just be sure you know the keyword. If you don't know the keyword, you can just type in what you know and Excel will bring out suggestions. So use the sum function. Okay, just heard about the sum function. We do not record how to use it. You're going to see some further explanations again. You don't know how to use the power function. So you're going to see this function. Is Excel not understanding that? Or function power? Oh, their results. Yeah, their results. So this is the result, function power, and you click on it. You're going to read about it, know more information about the syntax in case further helps us. So it's self-guiding in its own way, but for some of them, you just need further explanation. So never forget the help function. I think we can take a tea break now. And since we spent more hours than initially intended, we can then maybe go 10 minutes. And so we'll be back by whatever time you have, 25 minutes past the hour. So 25 minutes past the hour, we are 15 minutes past the hour at the moment. And so 25 minutes past the hour, we can return and then continue with the functions of when we work with, or we get to see a full table or a full data table instead of basic functions like this. So, or are there questions at the moment? Sorry about that. If there are questions at the moment, let's attend to the questions before we go on the break. If you have questions, kindly indicate by by raising your hands up. Use the reaction button to raise your hands up, and we'll be able to identify you to answer your questions. Okay, so at the moment, please wait for your name to be called before you ask the question. So Abdulrazak Are, I believe I called the name right. Yeah, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, Mr. Abdurrahman. Could you please repeat the power function? I didn't get that correctly.
Okay, so the power function, it's just a built-in function like this. This is, you know, for the power function, generally we say something raised to power something. So in this example, we can say 2, if we want to do the power functions of 2 raised to power 3, which is the same thing as saying 2 times 2, times 2 times 2 times 2. So when we are saying 2 raised to power 3, we are saying 2 times 2 times 2. That is 2 times 2, 4, 4 times 2, 8. So we're going to have the answer of 8. So instead of doing, if you're saying 10 to the power of 10, that means you want to be writing 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Like that in its own self is already kind of like, yeah. So a faster way or a smarter way to do it is you could just enter 10, which, as you can see the syntax here, this is the syntax of whichever function you're going to use. Excel helps you with the syntax. So you can see the function itself is called power. The first thing the Excel wants you to enter is the number that is going to be the primary number that is going to start the operation. So the number we are entering here is 10. By the power of, if we are saying 5, so 10 in 5 places, 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So since the power is 5, because we want to multiply 10 in 5 places, you just need to enter the comma, because there's a comma there. Maybe I should remove my mouse. So there's a comma there. Enter the comma, enter the 5, which is the power, close the function, and press the equal to sign. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, sir. It does.
You're welcome. Okay, good afternoon, Gladys. Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Hazard. Please, I actually came in late. I joined early, but I was logged out and I logged in. They later logged in a few minutes ago. I missed out some things, so I don't know if this section, if we can have a recorded video for it.
Okay, the section is currently recorded and you have access to that. But
Okay,
I can
thank
say
you.
you've not missed much because these are like preliminaries you're going to use in future analysis, like future presentations. So you'll be sure to catch up.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Mayowa, feel free to ask a question now.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Please, sir, how can we get the video, like the recorded video, please?
Okay, the organizers will provide an answer to that. So
All right, thank you very much.
Across to you guys after the class. This session is being recorded, so you guys will have it after the session.
Okay, thank you, Mayowa. So,
Thank you very much.
please. Timothy, are you there? You could ask your question now.
All right, thank you, sir. I wanted to ask, is there prerequisite for these schools?
Could you come up, like your voice is low, I'm not hearing you clearly, please.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, it's a bit better.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm asking, is there prerequisite for these course?
No, there's no prerequisite for the course because the intention is to train, the course is for beginners and intermediaries. So I won't call like something for beginners is not a prerequisite. Rather, what I'll say should be a prerequisite is an access to an Excel, whether it's on your phone, that is the application, or it's on a laptop, that's just something, because more than listening is the act of doing, and that's why they're going to be assignments. So that's the only prerequisite I'm going to say. Have access to the Excel software. So whether it's on the mobile phone or on your laptop, so that you'll be able to carry out the tax, as it's been said, and then you can also carry out your assignment as well.
Okay. My next question, I'm really sorry that I'm asking too many questions.
No worries.
Yeah, great. Will we have classes every other day, or through the week?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, please, the organizer should answer that. Thank you.
And my classes are for Saturdays and Sundays. Same time, 12 to 2 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays.
Oh, Saturdays to Sunday. Okay, that's really good. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, since there are no questions after Timothy again, thank you. We can take a break here and then meet back at 30 minutes past the hour.
Before we go, can I ask another question?
Okay, while others go for the break, sure. So just 8 minutes or 7 minutes. Yeah, you can ask a question.
Yes, sir. My question here is if like those materials have been taught and maybe if you have idea on them and maybe you just want to do your assignment and submit them, is there a problem? Will it cause you not to get the certificate after all?
Okay. Okay, the thing is that depending on the specific problem, I can't guarantee my availability like continuously. Not that because I have other engagement as well on my own end, but what I can say is that in a situation whereby you've tried, or what I will encourage forces to try reaching out or like, yeah, other resources online. If you're certain you're still not getting it, then you can reach out then via the email address you'll be given to submit your assignment. So I'll be sure to attend to it then as soon as possible. But I'll encourage that you try to solve the issue as well on your own end. You're saying after the whole sections, right? Not while like your assignment. We are talking about after the whole bootcamp, right?
No, that is not what I'm asking. Like now we have started something on SL, right?
Okay.
Now, probably because of our schedule, sometimes there are some conflicting things. What if I miss the class in SL and then there was an assignment given, but at least I tried, I did the assignment and then I submitted. Will it become a problem that I didn't attend the class? That is the question.
Okay, it's important to attend the class because one of the stuffs, yeah, you might have access to the video, but one of the important stuff about the question section now is that you might have done something that you need further questions about, and then you can't, like, it's better to ask in person than to be going over the video and like going back and back and back and forth. So
okay,
the best thing is just to attend the class. That's why it's more or less like weekend, because we know the weekdays are a bit tight.
Yeah, I got it.
So hopefully you can just spare the time. Be sure that it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I want to have another question. I think it's not a question, by the way. Yeah, I think it's not really a question. Because I really have strong passion for data, especially data analysis, not data, but data science. And I know data analysis and data science got a strong relationship, even though I know that data science is kind of a little higher. So I'm thinking after this particular course, whether there will be resources, especially from your end, because you are the lecturer, whether we can get, especially for me, because I want more resources, especially from data science, whether I can get resources from you, I mean, that can help me out.
Okay, there is no plan for that at the moment. But what I can tell you is that the importance of doing this stuff and starting from the beginning is the fact of like, data analysis is good in the broad view, but then generally now the world is diving towards the path whereby everybody actually needs to like, know how to analyze some set of data, because there's a difference between the kind of data I'm dealing with as a transport engineer and the kind of data a doctor might be dealing with. Like a doctor does research as well. That's why they tell us sometimes whether whether the consequences of some treatments, whether some drugs are working with some patient of this, and that's why they can tell us those information, because they actually compared the research that yes, people having this set of sickness and using this particular drug, yeah, the drug might have worked for some people, but then there's a factor that is making sure it's working, or it can work for these people, it can't work for these people. So it's like, that's the difference between, that's the importance of like data analysis, because you just don't make general assumption that, okay, yes, even the basic one we kind of say based on intuition is still kind of guided by some form of data, because you must have observed it. You might not record it down in a setting like this, but then in your brain, you're just like, yeah, this percentage of people, I think they're distant. But then the more you have the data, the better you can explain yourself. I don't know your field, but whatever or what you're intended to become, but whatever data you're going to have in that field, you might give it to me. I might be able to make some meanings out of the data, but I might not be able to make all the necessary correlations. And then you, though you're in the field, you have a better idea of what value corresponds to this. The further we go, the more you see it's just more than just writing or storing data or doing simple analysis. It could be very complex and bigger analysis as well. So that's why like it's a continuous stuff. And the best thing is once you just try to like, keep revising it over whatever little stacks you can use it for within your day-to-day activities. So for resources, no specific one I can guarantee you, But what I can say is that the more you do that practice, the better, like you might just necessarily need to use a function that we might have not done in this class, but be sure that, yeah, there'll be resources out there. And if not, you can always reach out to the email to guide you on Chante. It's the function of Excel, it's just wide. What we did then is just like preliminary stuff that's like every day-to-day activity that's so every day-to-day activity stuffs, and a simple stuff could even be just like, yeah, foodstuffs. I say foodstuffs, so you have money, foodstuffs, we can, yeah, capitalize it. I mean, bolding the text, so foodstuffs. What are on the list? You can have general food, we all do eat. Rice, beans. What again? Meat, fresh fish. So not oil. Vegetables. Yeah, we can just keep it at this for now. So a good example is this. Let's say the price per unit. So the price per unit of this, let's say 1 kg of rice is, I don't have any idea, but let's just deal with the values in 300 naira. Beans, 1 kg, maybe 350. Meat and fish, 1 kilo. Oh, so this is the price. Let's do this thing. So units, 1. So kg, window for meat, it's so the unit is not consistent because for liquid you're going to use so 1 kg, beans 1, meat and fish half kilo, so 0.5. Granite oil 2 liters, vegetable, yeah, maybe 500 grams as well, so half kilo. So, and the unit price for granite oil, maybe assumptions, pardon my distance, my lack of knowledge on the prices. So meat could be 200, and then you have vegetables like 100. So this is price per unit. Yeah, so this is price per unit. So one of the things we can do is, this is the price per unit, and this is, or more or less what we can do is, we can actually shift the cell by cutting the cell and then pasting it here. So, and we can delete this. So one of the functions of it as well is, yeah, you could right click and do some functions. So by right clicking, you could cut, you could copy. Here we don't have anything to paste. You can insert a new cell, delete the cell, clear the content in the cell, or just simply format some cells on it, hide or unhide. So what's hide is, maybe I'm dealing with some data and I don't want that part of the data to be visible to those I'm sharing it, or it's not relevant for the section. So I can unhide. And how do you know something is being hidden? When you say the number, because you can see we are moving from A, B to D. So you're saying the C column is not there. It's not a mistake. It's just the fact that Excel has tested the set of cell there has been hidden and you just need to go closer to it and you can unhide it back. But in this case, we don't need it at all, so we'll be deleting it. So this is just set of like basic everyday today stuff we could need to make it visible. So we can make this as a currency note. So accounting, if we click this, it's just going to be in dollars, but then we're not spending dollars enough. So we can be more practical about that. We go to accounting and then you can search. Or better still, let's just use the symbol. Maybe it was somewhere above. I've seen something above in the previous section. Is there a good banner on this one? Yes, so we have the Naira function now, which shows this is the monetary value. Then we are going to the store and the money we are taking to the store, let's say, yes, amount at hand. This is the amount we have at hand. So that's 2,000. So I don't know if you saw what I did now, so I can undo it. So we have the 2,000 here, and we want to represent it as a monetary value as well. So instead of going through the same process I did earlier, which is going to go and find the currency value and click into it, this is the function of the format painter. So the format painter is saying you want to copy the format and not the value itself. So I want to copy the format here and then transpose it like here, transfer that same format into the new cell I'm taking it into. So this is the format whereby it's including the Naira. I go to the format I want to copy from, click on the format pointer, and then take it to the format I want to apply it to. That's all. So it's showing this sort of like here, hash, because it is the value in the cell is more than the current space in the cell. So we can just expand it by doing this, and then it's going to show the entire value. So it's reading it as a monetary value now. And let's insert. So let's say we are going to the store and this is the amount we have. This is the price of everything. Now the question is price per unit. What quantity do you want to buy? Let's say this is the price per unit, but this is the quantity we want to buy. So for the amount is going to be equal to this. You can write this as this thing. Amount, okay. You can write this as amount and this as listen. What is it going to be? Fund at hand. So this is the fund at hand. This is the money we have at hand. And this is the amount of the goods we are going to be buying. So just similar to what we did before, we know it's the quantity that dictates it. So this is equal to, just to use what we learned before in the practical setting. So we know for the amount, the quantity we are going to buy multiplied by the price is going to tell us how much we are paying for the price, just for any monetary term. If you're going to be buying something of 100 Naira, if you're buying 2 of it, you know you're paying 200 Naira. So this is to enter the amount of the goods. So we are having equal to initiate the function, going to the quantity we are buying, multiply the asterisk sign. You can see the symbol, it has been noted. That is the D. The color is also going to be similar to the color of the cell it refers to. Then we want to multiply it by the price of 1 unit, which we are buying. So because we already call it price per unit, so price per 1 unit of it, whether it is 1 kg of rice, 1 kg of beans, 1 kilo of meat or fish, 1 liters of groundnut oil, 1 gram of this thing, 1 kilo of vegetables rather. So these are the price and these are the quantity we are buying. So with that, we have the amount that yes, 300 is the amount we spent for this. Instead of repeating the same thing in the next cell, like writing the same value, one of the things you can do is you come to the side bottom where you have this and you can drag it to the other ones. So you just go to the end of the previous thing. To undo it again, you go to the end. This is your cursor. You take it to the end of the current cell that has been calculated. You see that it changes. It's a big plus sign like a cross. But when it's at that end, it's smaller. So you just drag it down. So you are telling Excel to replicate what you did up here to other ones. And you can always check whether you are correct. So for this one, we can see that it is actually the corresponding values that are being calculated. So we have it that, same thing, this. So we have it for this as well, same thing, same thing. So that's a way to do it. Or another simpler way is, since this is a table, the variables are beside each other, and we want to do it for all the tasks. So you can just come to that same place and just double click. So instead of dragging it all the way down, let's say you're dealing with 100 pages, so you just have to be scrolling down. Like that's a lot of stress. So you could just double click and it's going to replicate the same thing. However, there are times whereby, yes, you don't want to do it for all the variables on the table. So probably I just want to stop for the meat and fish. I'm not sure about the groundnut oil, or I'm not sure if I'm buying it yet. So then you can do the dragging to wherever it's needed. So I hope that helps. There's nobody in the waiting room. So one thing we can do now, I think I need more space. So that's just, to include 2 spaces there. Okay, so one thing we can do now is to know the price of what amount that is remaining. So to know the price of what we bought so far, we can come here and then use the sum function like we saw above. So we use the sum function, which means instead of writing this plus this plus this plus this, we just use the sum function, go to where we want to start it from, that's E3, and while we are pressing Shift, you can use the downward button or use the upward button or the sideward button, depending on where the variables you want to add up are. But yes, since we selected the first one up, we're just going to scroll down. It's going to be the same answer since it's a sum function, it doesn't affect it. If we start down and we still scroll up, just make sure all the variables there are the same, are of the same data type. That's why I said the data type is important. If we mistakenly scroll to the top one and we close the parentheses, it's not affecting it because of, in this situation, it's just ignored it. It saw it as a text and it zeroed it, but usually a mistake like that could result in some data type. So it's better to just stick with the correct value. Let's say instead of writing amount here, I'm writing something like the year. I'm writing that is that we are in 2022. That's the year I'm writing it. If I carry out that function, there's going to be error. Why? Because then it's including what it's not supposed to include. So in this situation now, I actually did I did a mistake. I was supposed to clear the first one and not the end one. So you can see instead of it added the 2022 to it, whereas the data we are considering the sum is starting at E3, which is column E and row 3. In case you have questions within the section, you can raise your hand up as well and not just wait till the end. So that is for the sum, and we are very much just ensure that yes, we still have a lot of money at hand to buy other things. Let's say in a situation, let's change this back to amounts just to be understanding. I just wanted to show you the mistake we can encounter from including what is not supposed to be there. So the 2022 we kept there was just to indicate a time period and not to count it among the variables. But because we extended it to there, it took the answer to 2000 because it added it as a value, which shouldn't be the case. So we have the sum, reading that, yes, for the variables we have. Let's say in a situation you want to buy things more or less of like, yes, so this is the one that is of higher priority to me. And then depending on what is remaining at hand, I'll decide whether I want to buy a good or not. I don't know if you get this. So one of the very important things about data analysis is the ability to be able to conceptualize what you want to do. Like for this money value now, it's just the concept of the quantity times the price of a single unit tells me the amount I'm paying for it. So it's a factor that helps you because before you put anything down, you must know what you want to put down. And that's when you can get the right data analysis. So let's say balance. And this balance is to show that, yes, so what is the amount remaining at hand? I don't know if you so the balance is to show the remaining money at hand. So if I'm saying I'm buying one kg of rice, which is going to cost me 300, what's the amount that is going to be remaining? Don't forget the initial amount I had at hand was 2000. So all I have to do is come to 2000, say minus, come to the amount that I'm paying for rice. It's bigger than it, so we just expand it. And so it's telling me that, yes, so how much is remaining? 1,700. That's the amount I'm having remaining to buy the other stuffs I want to buy. If we try to do what we did before, like if you double click, it's going to propel it down, but then this is not the right result. Why is it not the right result? Any idea? Let's not waste our time. Thanks for those that raised their hand up, if any. So the thing is that right here, the amount remaining, if we subtract 17 from 350, the answer is not supposed to be this. Because this is, the factor now is that we must be sure of when to actually transpose, like to repeat the same thing down and when not to do so, because it doesn't affect all variables the same way. In this case, we are no longer dealing with something here, we are dealing with the one above it. So which means that this should be equal to the amount we have remaining as a balance minus the amount we are spending now, and we have it downward. Now it's more logical to pass it down because it depicts what is above it. Because this one will just be 1,350 minus 100, which is of course 1,250, minus 280, which is of course 970, and then minus 50, 920. So this way as well, we can transpose the sum because it's the same factor. So this is wrong, sorry. So this is the amount we have remaining as balance as compared to this thing. This is the amount remaining as balance after paying this from 2000, which is the same thing if we say the initial amount we had at hand minus the amount that we spent. So we are having the same amount, which is correct. But then as the exercise intended, let's say you just want to prioritize. So you have the 2000, you went to the market, and then your priority is to buy like rice. Rice is more important to the household. Perhaps you still have other ones at home. So you decided to buy 2 kg of rice. All we just need to come to the unit factor. We are buying one before, we decided to buy 2, and then we see the effect it's going to have. So we didn't need to go back through the entire process again to start changing this price or changing this price or changing this price. But because the Excel reads that it is a cell function, so it just reads the value in that cell and it changes it accordingly without us having to go through the process again. So it's kind of very dynamic and yeah, smart in its own way to use. So you didn't need to kind of repeat everything every now and then. Maybe an household that love meat or fish a lot and decide to buy 5 instead of buying half kilo. So but the moment you buy 5 of that, you can see what it transposed to the money. So now we have spent more than we had, and now we are owing. So we know we can't buy fish. I don't know if you're saying this. On buying 5 fish instead of half kilo, which became 1,000, the amount we had remaining was 50 naira. So it means this too is out of the case. If you're going to be buying them, as we can see from the answers, there's a minus in front of it. Perhaps we increase. I hope it's very visible now. So there's a minus in front of it, which indicates that we are now owing the seller we are buying from. So in order not to avoid owing, if it's in a situation whereby we don't want to be in debt, we could just then come and reduce our fish that the family is going to manage 3 fish for this month. And then we can still take 1,000 for transport and then used to go home. So this is just to depict the fact of like, it's more than just a software for writing, but then you can plan your expense. This is just every day-to-day expense of, perhaps we are not the one going to the market, but then another member of our household is of course going to the market to buy the food we are eating. So this shows what it's necessary and what takes place. We do this maybe with calculator because we are dealing with small figures, but it could be way, way beyond this. So as earlier mentioned, this is to show further figures whereby you could actually have it as a big data, storing more information than just pure information. Because in this place, we're just dealing with 5 items, like 5 items on the table, but you can be dealing with like, this is the first person, and then if we are to count down, we can just go to the side like this and scroll all the way down. So we are sure of, this is 508, that's the number of rows. So, but then we need to be sure of what starts it. So the variables themselves start at 3. So that's 508 minus the initial 2. So we have 506 entries. How do you start doing? Imagine if it was a food item or something we'll still deal with. How do you start doing each of them one by one? So it's an output that you can actually use to deal with broad set of data and do a lot of things at the same time. So this data is actually an information which it's the courtesy, the reference is from context. So I didn't create the data myself, but I took the data from their site. So credit to them. This data is information on athletics data in the Vancouver Olympics, I believe. 2010. So the Winter Games of 2010, that's where this data is from. So they considered athletes that did 2 sports, at least 2 sports for their countries. So they were representing their countries and they did 2 athletic sports. So these are, as earlier observed, we have 506. So a quick function we can learn today again is, instead of scrolling down, you can go to the first function you want to start counting from, which year. Please, if it is small in your screen, do let me know. So this is the first one, which you want to start counting from the first name. You press Control, you press Shift, you press the downward button. So you're moving from the first item there to the last written item. In the first screen that I showed you, that I moved to about 1 million and something because it was an empty worksheet. So there was nothing on the page. That's why it moved from the beginning. But in this case, it moves to the last written item in that table. If there's a space in between, let's say for different practical reasons, we decide to insert a row here. If we insert a row here, you can see the row has broken the table into two. There's an empty set of the table, and then the table continues again. If we use that function, we won't be able to capture them. So just Control, Shift, and the downward button. With that, we've counted but when we say it now, we can see that it's not including the downward. So you can also use that as a quick check to know if there are space in some values you want to kind of consider. But going back up, we can see that yes, going down, and one of the built-in functions for Excel, again, is a count function. So we can see down, if you're seeing my cursor, you should be able to see this function here, which says count. It's counting the functions here, which is, oh, it's because of my distance, my mouse, my screen sharing. I wasn't seeing the hand. So it's actually 2000. I was just saying from the 6. There's actually 2,606 variables, which is a lot of data. And then considering the countries that are representing, the people representing the countries, we can actually say that is logical. So in this data set now, we have the name and the surname written together. But there could be instances whereby you need to actually separate the name and the surname. So imagine this come to you as a task. It's going to be like time consuming. If you're saying you want to start copying out, because we can say you can copy out like this, copy the cell, come here, paste it, and then click on it and copy Mohammed out of the Abbas, close it, and paste the other one here. Like that's a lot of stress. We all agree that this is something that is going to take a lot of time for us to complete. So a quicker way, and a smarter way to do this, let's clear that out. A quicker way or smarter way to do this is you can have it here, say first name, or the surname is the first one, so that would be last name. Your first name. Let me remove the filter function. So in order to go through a list of variables as well, this comes to the function. It's called the filter function. So on the menu bar, you go to this button, you're saying it. That's the good part of Excel. The functions you want to use are actually written in English term that we are familiar with. So you can click this filter function to create it or to go out of the section. So once you just click on the filter, now I want to leave it, so I'm going to remove it out so that we can see the variable names very clearly. So last name, first name. So a way to go about it is, like as earlier mentioned, you can use functions. There are several ways to carry out these tasks. There are more than one function to do it, but for time's sake, I'm just going to go through a few of them. So we are going back to the first variable that I want to consider to split. Pressing the Ctrl-Shift downward button, going through all the variables, you can come to this insert data page. Okay, yes. So on the top menu bar, you go to the one that is called data. So when you go to the one that is called data, you have this stuff that is called text to column. So you can only do this function for a particular column. Like I can't do this and select multiple columns together. I must do them one by one. So you come to the column function, text to column function, you click on it. If you're checking this, it's called trying to separate variables, the delimiter function. We click on the delimiter, the first one. We click on next. If we notice the only thing separating the surname and the last name is what? Is a space. So in this place, it is tab. We can come to the space one. The moment we click, we activated the space bar. you can see there's a separation in the preview. This is the downward preview. Let's uncheck it. So the names are together, but we know it's space that is separating them. So we can come to the downward preview. This is part of how you separate text in column, and it also helps for comma-separated variables. So we've been able to separate it by just this inbuilt function. You don't need to do much yourself. You just click on next again, since it are separated as we want. What data type do we want them to be? We are fine with them being text. We are fine with them being, what's it called? With them being general or being text, because general is not specific. So they are general, we don't necessarily need to change that. And this is not the important part, which is the destination. Where do you want that answer to start from? You want it to start from here, which we indicated to be the last name. So this is still it. Once you are done, you've indicated it. One thing that comes to mind is we can see a $sign before the G, and we can see a $sign before the 3. The cell we are referring to is G for column, and it is 3 for cell. But the $sign is what we call absolute referencing. That is, we want you to start, you must start from this. Like, it mustn't shift to another one, because if it shifts to another one, it could distort it. So absolute referencing is making sure something starts or something doesn't move away from a particular cell you're referencing. So we didn't need to write it in this case. We just clicked on the cell and Excel entered the value itself. By the time we click on finish, we can see we have the variables without needing to do anything ourselves. So we can separate it further. So this is the response to it. Imagine the time it's going to have taken someone to write all this Abbas, Mohammed, different names separately. This is going to be like a long time, but then you can easily do this without having to spend many hours on doing 2,600 something words. So we can see that we've been able to carry out these tasks in a smarter, faster way earlier than 8. One thing we are going to note is that there is a column 1 and a column 2. And why is that? If we start going to the names that have this, for example, Anderson, Jason, J. If we go to the person name, the person has 3 names, which most likely the Anderson has written here is the last name, and Jason and J is like, yeah, Jason and J is the first name, they're together. So there are people that have names that are like that, whereby 2 names are forming their first name, like the Young and different places like that. So in that situation, it's creating an error whereby, yes, we are having more than one result. So this is going to be a separate stress we'll have to deal with. And in that case, one might decide not to use this method, because in this situation, it doesn't fulfill all the requirements we need, because it's creating some additional names when it is not necessary. A good example is the next person on the list that had the same issue. It's even the surname. The first 2 are the surname, Daniela is the last name. So it's in these situations like this, it just calls for like, yeah, a separate, same thing here. The first 2 are the surname, the last one are the last name. So it's this thing, let me not clear it just for reference sake. So you can have this as first name, let's say _2, or last name first. So last name _2, just to see the difference in the method, and then first name _2. So we can expand them again to see the variables very well. So this pattern is to go, you can go like this, but this pattern, it's, how do I call it? It requires the names to be very close to each other. That is the values you want to enter to be close to each other. Let's see if Excel read it. So we're writing the names out individual, the first set of names, you have to write them out. Abbas out correctly, Mohammed out. Then what you do is you press Ctrl E. Did we catch that? So what we did is that you needed to enter the first values out, the second values out. So this is called the flash fill, which means you want Excel to notice what you did in the previous one, and it should do something similar again. This doesn't always apply, especially when it has to do with calculation, but when it comes to text, it works pretty well. Let's call it pretty well. It works pretty well. So you write the first value because we've separated it ourselves. Excel has read that this value that we are entering, we copied it from somewhere here. So once you press Ctrl plus E together, Excel understands that you want it to carry out this function by separating them. And under the second one as well, you just go to the next empty one and you press Ctrl E, and it does the same thing. So when we compare this one to the previous one, we can see that here we are now missing out the third name. Here the third name has been lost in translation, and that's why there are several distinct syntax in carrying out this function. They are faster, but the better one is using the length function. But then, so that we don't get to do only this today. Let me see this. Okay, still the same. They actually carried out the same set of mistakes by transposing the first value, and so it's the functions are not foolproof, and that's why there are times whereby we always have to carry out pivoting function our own self and not depend on the inner built function of Excel. So this has to do with the naming, which if time permits tomorrow, I'll show this thing, the third function, because the third function requires full explanation. It's about multiple set of functions in each other. And I say the time is almost up for today. So another intention to this intended plan to carry out for today is we have the age function, which goes across everyone in this and participating in the Olympics, the winter athletics program. So for this thing, to know the mean age, the maximum age, the medium age, general things that we do carry out. These are also functions we can carry out in Excel. We can start from what's the minimum age. So the minimum function, it's just the same thing. Oh, capital. Okay, corrected. So
for me, I really thought it was kind of far, but when I started working, it didn't take us like 15, 20 minutes to come here.
Sorry? Yes, another one. So for the distance, for the average, these are like mean, the average function. But the good part of Excel is Excel actually carries out the mean function. When it comes to number, it carries out the average function, which is the same as the mean. So if we go do the same thing, this is under age, which has to do with numbers. For like the weight now, we can see there's a missing data, which we'll have to deal with in a subsequent class. So these are part of data cleaning function that we need to do. But for the age factor, yeah. So for the age function, we can go from the first cell to the last cell, Control Shift and the down arrow. So we have recorded all the this number of count. We can see it here. So Excel does, if you see my arrow, Excel does the calculation for horse. Generally, it's just a built-in function, which you can select to do or to not show. So the average is telling us is 26 years old. The count, 2,606, as earlier indicated. This is the sum of all the age of everybody. So this is the sum of all the age. The ages, and we know that, yes, if we divide this by distance, the counts, we are going to get to the average. So we can also carry out those functions, but a good part of it is say average. For the average, which is the main function, all you just need to do is to enter the word average, So like as I said, built-in functions for Excel are more or very distant. Like it's not hard to know because you know the value. The names rather are similar to the common names you're used to. So for average, we can see 8 if the words in the background are not blocking it. So let's go so we can create space. Yeah, equal average. Yeah, so it's shifted here now. Returns the average, which is the same thing as the arithmetic mean as earlier mentioned, of a set of arrays. So you can write everything fully or just double click on the one you want to use. Once you do that, it's going to write it in full and create the open bracket. So what is the first variable we want to use? The first variable we want to deal with is the age function. So the age function, you can scroll down as we said, or you can just press the Control Shift and the downward arrow. So it reads everything that is within the table on that row, and you just close the parentheses. And once you do that, the mean value is calculated, which is similar to the same thing we had before, 26 years old. You can reduce it, you can increase like the decimals behind it. But we know for age, the whole number is the most important thing. So the average age is 26. For the minimum age, we can do the same thing. So you just have to enter mean. So it returns the smallest number in a set. So the function is called mean. All these other ones are also functions of their own, but the function we're using now, it's mean. So you just click on mean and same thing, you just need to go to the first value you want to consider and go all the way down to the last value you want to consider. In this situation whereby you're not seeing the formula again, always the cell you're writing to is always indicated up here. So you are sure you are still within the same section. So you are sure you're still within the same set of variables to be considered. You close the parentheses and we are having the value. So the minimum age was 15 years old. So the maximum age, similar stuff, you just enter max, open the bracket, start from under age, we're still dealing with age, go down, and so you've actually done this instead of the counted hours you have to go through to calculate all these figures. So this is how to calculate the average, the mean, the maximum of this age range. The mean is the same thing as the average, so we won't calculate the mean again. And then you can calculate the mode. Using the words are similar, so you just write median. And we go from age again, from the first to the last. We close it. And the medium age is 25. While for mode is also mode. You enter mode and you go down again. So which tells us the age, the age with the highest frequency of participants. That is the age where most participants, or the age range for most participants, not the age range for most, but rather participants of age 14 were the highest in terms of age range. So that's a way to do the mean median mode. I guess we stop here for today while we take on the other explanations from tomorrow. So if there are any questions, you can raise them now, and if not, we'll see tomorrow. So the functions remain the same. You could just raise your hand up and then you can ask a question. Okay, the first person is Chante. Please feel free to ask a question.
Yes, sir. Please, can you repeat the meaning of the mode in this situation?
Okay, so what mode refers to is when you're doing frequency, there's this set of age range. So there are this age range 24, 23. So the participants with age 24 were the highest. Let's say there are 10 people, age 5, 10, 15, yeah, with 12, and then there's 10, maybe 10 again, and there's 5. So when we are doing the mode of this, it means that we have how many participants here? 1, the count is 7. So there are 7 participants here, for example, 7 of them. 2 out of the participants here, we know they are age 5, while 3 out of them are 10, and just 1 is 12. So the mode for this data set is going to be 10 because 10 carries the bigger number. That is the highest frequency for the age range. Hope that clears it.
Yeah, got it. My second concern is about I couldn't download the Power BI, like it's asking me to buy.
Okay, the executives will answer that. The organizers can maybe help with that for now. So I don't need to delete this set. I could just clear the content and they go. Will the organizers like to answer this now, or they'll put it for later?
We'll get across to you as regarding the Power BI. We'll get across to you on Slack.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, thank you, Chanti, for the questions. In the absence of none, so we can call it a day today and pick up from here tomorrow.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Abdurrahman Ghazal. Thank you so much. So the absence of no question, I think we can revise all what we've been taught today and then prepare for tomorrow's class. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.